Okay, good morning and welcome, Marin County. My name is LaKenya Jordan, and I am the Deputy Secretary of State for the Voters' Choice Act under the leadership of Dr. Shirley M. Weber, your California Secretary of State. First, we want to extend a warm congratulations to Marin County on your choice to become a Voters' Choice Act county. Marin County has joined now more than 16 million voters in expanding the number of days and ways in which people in this county can vote. For the past 12 months, Marin County has worked with our office to prepare for this moment. We are pleased to join Marin County in kicking off this wonderful day for you all. So first, I want to acknowledge our Secretary of State, Shirley M. Weber, who is on the call, who will be speaking with you shortly, and then County ROV, Linda. And so I'll go right into just introducing our Secretary of State. Shirley Nash Weber was nominated to serve the California Secretary of State by Governor Newsom on December 22nd of 2020. She was sworn into office on January 29th, 2021, and she is the first Black Secretary of State and the only fifth African American to serve as a state constitutional officer in California's 170-year history. Dr. Weber was born to sharecroppers in Hope, Arkansas during the segregationist Jim Crow era. Her father, who left Arkansas after being threatened by a lynch mob, did not have the opportunity to vote until his 30s. Her grandfather never voted, as custom and law in the South before the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which systematically suppressed Black voters during that time. Dr. Weber moved to California when she was just 3 years old, and she has fought to expand and secure civil rights for all Californians with her family during her time. For California thus far, she has expanded the Voters' Choice Act to now include 28 counties, which is double the program in size. She's fought hard in the legislature to actually fund counties for outreach and education and to ensure that those in underserved areas are included in the process. Without further ado, I want to introduce our Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley N. Weber.
Well, good morning, and thank you, LaKenya, for organizing this event. And I really want to thank those of you who've joined us on this call this morning for this very, very important occasion. I always, as I begin anything, I always want to make sure I thank my staff, because sometimes in the process we forget to do that. And our staff that's been working on VCA has done an amazing job in increasing the number of VCA counties that we have, working with them, providing them with support, and making sure that voting is easier and that their theme of more ways and more days is truly carried forth. I want to thank Marin County staff for working with us to make this possible. And of course, want to thank our outreach efforts. Our outreach workers have also worked hard, and they're on the call as well, to make sure that we're working in partnership with each other to have the best possible outcome for this. I'm excited about the fact that we are opening more opportunities for people to vote. That's what the VCA is all about, creating an opportunity where before it was very limited in many ways for people to vote. The options were limited. And if you were a hardworking individual or you had other complications in your life, you'd have to make sure that voting was top priority. And sometimes folks had other things that intervene. But VCA does that. It creates a greater opportunity. It gives those who are working in the registrar of voter offices throughout the state the tools they need to make sure that every Californian who is eligible to vote has the opportunity to vote. So I'm happy to be with you today. I'm honored that I was chosen as the California Secretary of State by the governor to do this work, because this is important work. And I've done some of it as a legislator for 8 years. But most importantly, my whole life was built around voting. Most folks, my parents were sharecroppers and never got a chance to vote. But the interesting thing about them is that when they came to California, they voted in every election. And in fact, our home in Los Angeles on 45th Street was actually a polling place most of my life. And so, so I embrace this work as important and significant work in California, but across the nation. Just to give you a little bit of information, the Office of the Secretary of State is more than just voting. It's interesting enough. We get a lot of attention from voting and the work that's done and the huge staff that we have there to make voting easy and accessible and secure for all of you. But in addition to that, my office is responsible has a large business program, and we're responsible for the registering of all of our business programs in our division, as well as all of the nonprofits that are there. Of course, we have archives. We have archives that chronicle all of the history of California. And it's an amazing archives with great leadership. And we've been opening it up more to make sure that it includes all of California, not just the elected officials, but all of California's history, because that's what makes us strong and makes us proud. Clearly, we have an information technology division. We have a wonderful leadership in that, because what is happening now is much of our work is being done over, as you can see, over Zoom. But equally important, a lot of the other things that happen in terms of the registration of businesses and the filing of candidate statements and those kinds of things are also demand a tremendous amount of technology. And so we do have a technology division. We have management services in terms of basically having to handle all of the management issues, whether it's running the facility that we have in Sacramento, or whether it's dealing with personnel issues. We have a large management division because there are close to 500 people who work at the Secretary of State's office. And of course, we have a political reform division. This division basically tries to make sure that our campaigns are clean, that there's honesty and integrity in those who are campaigning, as well as those who are funding campaigns. And so many of you hear a lot about our political reform division when things don't go right with candidates, but it works hard to make sure that candidates understand all the rules and regulations that govern them. And of course, the last division is the executive division. And many of the folks you'll see, LaKenya is a member of that. It's our executive staff. They're the ones who head up most of the divisions, making sure that everything runs smoothly and that they are listening and responding to the issues of the public. And we have a great management team throughout the Secretary of State's office. And I'm very proud of all of them because they do an amazing job. So once again, I just, as your Secretary of State, I'm pleased to be on this call with you today. Pleased to welcome Marin County into the family of VCAs. They've done a great job in getting ready for this, and we know that their results are going to be amazing, as all of the VCA counties have shown that when we work hard to do the kinds of things that open up the franchise of voting, that we have greater turnout, we have greater participation, and everyone feels that they're getting the information and getting the support they need. So once again, Marin County, welcome to VCA. You're joining a great family of other counties who have taken the charge of the VCA mantle and have moved forward to make sure that they are doing the best they can to provide these services for everyone. So once again, welcome, and I'm glad to be on call with you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Secretary. So that was our Secretary of State. And as you can see, she is an outstanding leader and passionate about the Voters' Choice Act, as I am. First slide, please. So welcome to the More Days, More Ways presentation. Our office wanted to connect with counties and election officials and the communities to make sure that everyone understands what the VCA is and what will be happening in your upcoming elections. So first, we're going to start with a little bit of history and background. The Voters' Choice Act was passed for the legislature in, I guess, SB 450 in 2017. And then we adopted the model in 2018. The VCA model provides voters with more days and more ways for choosing how and when and where to cast their ballot. The VCA model also allows voters to choose where they actually can mail their ballot. You can actually take it to a Dropbox or into a vote center, or vote in person, which is probably the biggest change that will be for most counties, that you'll have up to 10 days to vote in person as a VCA county, 10 days prior to an election. So that's really exciting for all counties involved. Slide 4. The VCA model also provides greater flexibility and convenience for voters by allowing the voters to be mailed, so I have to say this correctly, every active voter. So if you are an active registered voter, your ballot will be mailed to you 29 days before an election. So what does that mean? That means go to your county election officials, come to our office online, and actually make sure that you're registered to vote. It's really important that you have an active registration in order for you to receive your ballot by mail. So I know that Wendy and Linda and folks down at the Marin County office are looking forward to connecting with the community and with all the different voters. So please make sure you do that. But once you have that done, you will receive the ballot in the mail, and you can actually drop it off in a Dropbox location or in the mail itself, the US mail. Next slide, please. So we want to also underline that this VCA is about guaranteeing access to voting for every voter. And so we do a lot to make sure we're leveraging hard to reach communities, the voters who are most impacted by votes. As you all know, if you don't vote, then your voice isn't heard. So the most important thing is that we're inclusive in this process, and VCA does that by, again, reaching out to communities that are hard to reach, those in the language minority groups, and then offering an election model that positions the power in the hands of the voter. And some of our partners include League of Women Voters, the Disability Rights of California group, Common Cause, the ACLU, and of course, our office as a partner, as we consider ourselves partners with the public and with every county. Let's see, next slide. So the Voters' Choice Act engages language communities and voters with disabilities, particularly through certain committees. So one is called the VAC, the Voters Access Committee, and then there's the Language Access Committee, the LAC. And then some counties go beyond that and actually have community-based organizations that form a coalition around community advisory, and they actually work with the counties to become this advisory group to the larger community. So we have special groups as part of VCA, the LAC and the VAC committees. And then of course, Marin County will have more details for you in their presentation about how you can be part of those efforts. Next slide. So more particularly about the language access community, this is about really making sure that all the people who speak different languages in your community are actually engaged in the process. So the Voters' Choice Act specifies that there are a number of community members who are actually supposed to be part of this committee, and they should be working with the counties during every election to help plan out where those ballot boxes actually go. They should be part of drafting the election administration plan, which we know Marin County has already done. As they've been talking to us for the past 12 months about all their different efforts on the ground. So once again, congratulations, Marin County, on doing that part. And then the LAC, it meets regularly with the county ongoingly throughout the year. So you'll wanna pay attention to that. And the same for the Voting Accessibility Advisory Committee, the VAC. They are also required to help make recommendations for improving the elections, and it's designed to advise and provide recommendations on a regular basis to the county to help both the larger community, for those maybe who don't have a voice for themselves, who can't, maybe possibly speak or be at those particular meetings, but who also want their voice heard in the election. So this is so important that you find a way to engage, whether it be the LAC or the VAC or through a community advisory group, or simply volunteering as a poll worker during the election. So there's a number of ways, and we, the VCA supports that. Next slide, please. So a little more background about the VCA. It started as just 5 counties in the state of California, just Madera, Napa, Nevada, and Sacramento County. And that was like 2018. By 2020, next slide, 10 new counties adopted the VCA model. And we had 15 counties in 2020. So as you can see, this model begins to grow, because what counties have been finding is that you expand the number of days and you give voters more ways to vote, then you have greater engagement. So it is actually seeing voter registration go up for VCA counties, as well as seeing voter participation increase in VCA counties, because we do believe that people want to be part of this process. But now you have those options with VCA. Next slide, please. So as of 2022, we now have 28 counties in the state of California who are part of the Voters' Choice Act. And you can see them here displayed. This means that from 15 to now 28 counties are actually going through the process, as Marin has just done, to upgrade their engagement and to increase the number of days and ways that people can actually vote. So that's more than 16 million voters in the state of California will not have the same option. And what does it mean? It means you can go anywhere in your county and vote. It means that you can, engage through one of these committees and be involved in the process, and that you can return your vote by mail or by ballot Dropbox. All right, next slide. So further information on voting locations in a county's location are actually available through the county. And then the county also tells you how you can register to vote, how you can request to receive a vote by mail ballot. We also have a website called earlyvoting.ca.gov, where you can go on and find where your location might be to vote closer towards the election time, because counties right now are planning out those locations and have been engaging with the different communities in planning those locations. So we also have a VCA page where you can actually check your voter status, and there's a link there, as you can see. And there's a QR code here that's visual. So if you actually held your phone up to the screen right now, you can actually click on that QR code and it'll take you to a place where you can actually make sure you're registered to vote and check on your voter status. All right, next slide, please. All right, so if you have any more questions about VCA, the person who's going to come right next after me, the ROV Linda Roberts, will be able to answer some of those questions, but also the wonderful team, Wendy and Daniel and folks down at the Marin County place. But also, if you need to talk to myself or to our Assistant Deputy Alicia Albernaz, she's also available to help you. So now I'm going to introduce Ms. Linda Roberts, who is the ROV. Linda was appointed as Marin County's Registrar of Voters in July 7, 2014. So prior to this appointment, she was the Clerk Recorder Registrar of Voters at the Board of Supervisors for Marin County. She lived on the Big Island of Hawaii from 2005 to 2007 and worked in the development department for Parker School. Her career is in public service and elections. They all started within Salt Lake City. She's got an illustrious career of being invested in public service. Linda graduated from the University of Utah in 2005 with a Master's of Public Administration. And she's also worked for 14 years at the University of Utah. Wow, Linda, impressive background. Linda has graduated from the San Rafael Leadership Institute of the Marin County Leadership Academy in 2017, and she's a member of the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials. So without further ado, I welcome your Registrar of Voters, Ms. Linda Roberts.
Thank you, LaKenya. It's an honor to be co-hosting this event with the Secretary of State's office. Thank you to everybody who's attending today. My team and I will talk specifically about the exciting changes to the Voters' Choice Act, these changes that we will be bringing to the Marin County voters. So my first slide, please. As LaKenya said, the Voters' Choice Act is designed to give voters more options of when and how they vote. It provides convenience because all active voters will get a ballot in the mail and vote centers will be open for more days. In May of 2021, the Board of Supervisors passed a resolution supporting implementation of the Voters' Choice Act after hearing comments from the public. So how will Marin County voters be impacted? Currently, we have a very high number of people who already vote by mail. So they won't notice much difference, except there will be more ballot drop boxes available starting 29 days before an election. And if needed, these voters can get a replacement ballot at any vote center, not just from the elections department like in the past. So how will in-person voting change? In Marin County, we've been used to having about 87 polling places that are only open on election day. Voters were assigned to one location, and if they went to the wrong location or couldn't surrender their vote by mail ballot, they would have to vote provisionally. For those of you who have done that, you know that your ballot goes into an envelope and it is checked later. So under the Voters' Choice Act, we'll have fewer locations, but with better benefits. These benefits include locations that are open for more days. 4 locations will be open starting 10 days before an election and on election day. And a total of 18 locations will be open 3 days before an election and on election day. Voters can go to any location and we'll have voter lookup to confirm that somebody didn't already vote. So we can issue that person a live ballot to vote on site, or we can issue a replacement vote by mail ballot that the voter can take with them. Next slide. So what are the impacts on voting by mail? As I mentioned earlier, all active registered voters will get a ballot sent to them in the mail. Packets are mailed starting 29 days before an election. Methods of returning the ballot include by mail or at an official county Dropbox or at any vote center location. Dropbox locations will be listed in the voter guide sent to all voters and posted online. Our data from November 2020 showed that 50% of voters in that election returned their ballot at a Dropbox. The most popular Dropbox was our drive-through located at the Civic Center. So let's talk about security of Dropboxes. Dropboxes are designed to be secure. They are constructed similarly to those used by the US Post Office, FedEx, and UPS. They are bolted on the inside into concrete or secured to an immovable object using industrial strength hardware. The ballot Dropbox opening is narrow and designed in a way that prevents tampering. Dropboxes that are not available 24 hours a day will be moved inside when the vote center is closed. Ballots from vote center Dropboxes will be returned nightly to the elections department. More information about Dropboxes and pickup procedures is posted on our website for each election. Next slide. So how do we determine the number of vote centers and Dropbox locations? This depends on the number of registered voters 88 days before an election. Based on our current registration, we'll have 4 locations open for 11 days, including election day, and a total of 18 locations open for 4 days, including election day. Based on our current registered voters as well, we'll have 1 Dropbox for every 15,000 voters, which equals 12 Dropboxes open 29 days before an election. So what are the services offered at vote centers? As you can see listed, we've got services that include dropping off a vote by mail ballot, registering to vote and voting, updating voter registration and voting, receiving a replacement vote by mail ballot, or using accessible voting equipment. And I do want to reiterate that I think one of the biggest benefits of this new model is that voters can go to any vote center location and they are open for multiple days. Next slide. So how do we pick locations? First, we focus primarily on statutory criteria. As you can see here, we consider population centers, parking, access to public transportation, areas with low vote by mail use, language minority communities, disability communities, and low income communities. Next slide. We also consider the size of locations, availability, accessibility, computer connectivity, and security. For Dropboxes, we need to include availability of locations, accessibility, and security. So we do a thorough review of locations so that we can select those that will work best for our voters. Next slide, please. So this list shows the areas around the county that will have vote centers for the June election. And the specific locations and hours of operation will be posted online closer to the election. You can see our website, marinvotes.org. Next slide. So an added benefit of VCA, as LaKenya pointed out, is having advisory committees that help provide public education and outreach and give us feedback about what we need to focus on. So specifically, the Voters' Choice Act requires a Language Accessibility Advisory Committee and a Voting Accessibility Advisory Committee. But we have 4 committees, including a LAC, a VAC, and an election advisory committee, and our newest committee, a voter education and outreach advisory committee. At this point, I want to introduce my team members, Megan Stone and Danny Straub. Megan and Danny are our outreach coordinators, and they will talk about our voter education plan.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Linda. And as you've mentioned, Danny and I will be reviewing the Marin's voter education and outreach plan for the June 7th election. We'll be conducting a similar voter outreach and education campaign as we did for the November 2020 election. We'll be implementing aspects of the VCA model for outreach, utilizing our outreach partner network to provide feedback and distribute outreach materials we design that they'll distribute to their own networks. And we'll also be utilizing similar advertising methods. Sorry, I forgot to switch the slide. So additionally, like I just mentioned, we'll be utilizing our outreach network. And that outreach network that we was formed in 2019 has grown, and we've formally recognized that as the Voter Education and Outreach Advisory Committee, or the VOAC. That organization is 40 plus partners strong and growing. It consists of a diverse array of organizations that includes government, private, nonprofit, faith-based organizations, academic, youth and senior-oriented institutions, political active groups, and community-based organizations that provide culturally competent and intelligent services. So it's nice and wide variety that strives to represent all of Marin County. And as part of that VOAC, our other advisory committees that Linda just mentioned are part of that. That's the LAC, VAC, and Election Advisory Committee. The primary goal of the VOAC is to alert voters about upcoming elections and share important nonpartisan messaging created by the Elections Department. And other goals of the VOAC are to provide feedback on new outreach messaging and tools created by the Elections Department, help inform voters about changes related to the Voters' Choice Act implementation, help identify and invite any new and additional communities that are missing from the group, and advise the registrar on effective strategies to serve voters in historically underrepresented communities. So a list of those members from the VOAC are on our website, marinvotes.org. We do ask that you go check it out, look and see if there's anyone that you think is missing from that group. And if you have any suggestions, please let us know. Our contact info will be at the end of this presentation. If you happen to be on any organization that's not on the list, that's even better. If we have like a direct contact, that really helps. But if you can really help us widen our audience, our reach to voters, we'd really appreciate it. So as I mentioned, this VOAC helps share our messaging, and that messaging is distributed to our partners in the form of an outreach toolkit. It's a primary effort on the VCA implementation outreach effort. This toolkit it's created by the Elections Department and includes messaging like posters, banners, flyers, newsletter stories, and messaging and social media graphics that mirror the election cycle. The free kit is disseminated to our partner network in digital and print formats, and they go along with a go live schedule that it's like for releasing each text, social media, or email messaging to their networks. Some of the messaging examples include things like changes due to the Voters' Choice Act, just notice that there's an upcoming election, information about our toll-free voter assistance hotline, info about ballot tracks, voter registration eligibility, when to expect a vote by mail ballot, how to locate a vote center or official ballot Dropbox, and how to obtain a facsimile or accessible ballot, and then some. Those materials will be available and distributed in English, Chinese, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And some other aspects of this toolkit, another aspect is our video public service announcement. The stars of this PSA are leaders from the English, Chinese, Spanish, and Vietnamese speaking communities in Marin, and those videos will include similar messaging to what I just mentioned. And then one other aspect of this toolkit that I want to highlight is this election FAQ sheet. And this was actually recommended to us by our partner network from the 2020 election. And it's essentially just a sheet that we're going to give to our partners that will have some common FAQs about elections and specifically VCA because of this change. Anything that while they're sharing our message might the questions that might come up, and so they can easily like refer to this sheet and then answer those questions, or give voters I would direct them where to go. And then this is also a living document, so we'll send out initial copy with some FAQs that we think are relevant, but it's going to be altered and revised and shared again and again. So if any of our partners are on the line, that's something you can look forward to. This toolkit will be distributed digitally in the next few weeks, we hope, as we wait for translations to come in. And it's also, Danny will be reaching out actually at the end of March and or early April to let you know how you can access a printed copies of these materials. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Danny now. He's going to talk about additional outreach efforts that we're working on.
Thank you, Megan. And thank you to Linda and the Secretary of State's office. This is a great experience to be taken part of. So we have a couple different outreach efforts that are underway or coming. We have already sent our first direct mailer to all active registered voters in the county. It is primary in English, but it has a large panel in our required languages, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese, that explains how to get more information where that information is available. And they focus on the changes that are due to the VCA implementation. They're meant to announce that Marin has brought the Voters' Choice Act to the county, as well as provide basic bullet points on the most important information and easy to understand language in an infographic form. It answers questions like, what is a vote center and how does a vote center work? We expect to have an April mailer as well that will have similar information on it, but will be presented in a slightly different infographic format. And we hope that that gets out to our registered voters in early April. We were also going to be advertising for the elections this year, and we will be advertising in a similar way to how we have advertised in the past. So we will be running ads in the countywide newspaper, Marin Independent Journal. We will have ads in regional newspapers like Point Reyes Light and the Marin Scope newspaper group, as well as local magazine publications in both physical and online formats. We're placing ads on radio channels or radio shows that broadcast in our required languages. The public service announcement that Megan mentioned will be airing on cable access televisions throughout the county. And we will continue to utilize the help that we get from the public information offices for press releases as they're needed. And we plan to buy advertising space on the sides of buses in certain neighborhoods. And of course, we have our toolkit that Megan mentioned of materials that will have our messages coordinated on multiple social media accounts and multiple platforms of our own, of the counties, and even of some of our partners. Slide. Then we have workshops. That is in progress, that is coming. We have two different types of workshops that we are in the early stages of planning right now. We have our language access workshop and our accessibility workshop. We are looking to meet the needs of the public as best we can while still considering COVID. So the language workshop will be a bilingual event, and we will be soliciting feedback on forming this workshop from our Language Accessibility Advisory Committee. And these events or these workshops will specifically be to target the Chinese, Spanish, and Vietnamese speaking communities. We will also have our accessibility workshop, which is targeting voters with disability, and there will be an ASL interpreter available. And we will be soliciting feedback for this workshop from our Voting Accessibility Advisory Committee. And for those, we are targeting mid to late April for those workshops to be available to the public. Slide. Now, there'll be a Q&A session of this webinar in just a moment, but in the future, if you need to reach out to the Marin Elections Department, You can always find more information on our website, marinvotes.org. You can email Megan or I directly, and you see our contact information there. And if you want to just talk to a person, you can do that. We have people here that love talking about elections, and we have our number posted there as well.
Thank you, Megan and Danny.
Thank you.
LaKenya, I think we're now moving into questions and answers. Is that right?
That's right. I was looking to see if we had any questions. I don't think we had very many at all. Oh, here we have one here actually. It says, why is there no location in the northern part of West Marin, specifically for the residents of Tamales and Dillon Beach? The closest center for them to go to is either Point Reyes Station or Novato, which is quite a distance for others to travel. So can Marin County answer that question?
When we were looking at locations, we wanted to focus on the hubs with the biggest population. And so we pinpointed Point Reyes as a good location for that. But it's helpful to get feedback and for future consideration.
Okay. Thank you. So that was for Terry Sylvain. If that was the answer to your question, Mr. Sylvain or Mrs. Sylvain. Anything else that we want to cover while we're here?
I did see a question earlier in chat. Someone asked if elections would be more expensive with the new features, like the number of days the polls are open. And I anticipate initially the cost may go up, but there will be offsets as well, because we will have the capacity to print ballots at vote center locations instead of needing to order a big paper inventory. So we will analyze after the elections what the costs are. Part of the requirement is to put together a report to submit to the Secretary of State's office. So we'll learn more as we go along and as we hold these elections under this new model, what those costs will be and how they'll be offset.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay, well, if there aren't any more questions, we almost are finishing a little early, but we want to keep it open a little bit longer. If folks have other questions you want to ask or type into the chat, we're happy to address those here. Maybe also, can you guys share the web link for where people can go online and check their voter status, their registration status? That's so important to getting that vote by mail ballot.
Yeah, LaKenya, do you mean the Secretary of State's website or our website?
Either or both, whichever you prefer your voters to use in Marin County. Ours, of course, is always available to voters, but we also want to make sure people are connecting with you at the county level.
Okay, great. We'll put everything in the chat.
Okay.
And I do see another question. Can you talk about being an observer at election time? That is a great question. And observers are welcome throughout the process. People often come to our department to watch the various things that we're doing, such as processing the vote by mail ballots, running them through the scanners for tallying. So voters are citizens, people are more than welcome to come in, watch what we do. We do post a schedule so that people know when we will be doing the various election processes, and observers are also welcome to go to vote center locations, any location, and observe. No appointment necessary. You just check in with the coordinator and let them know you're there to observe, and they can find a place for you to observe. There are guidelines and rules about observers not interfering with the process, but being able to observe is a very important part of keeping the process transparent. So thank you for that question.
Yes, wonderful. And you also have someone here in the chat saying they'd like to engage with Megan and Daniel to discuss how the Youth Commission can best support this cause. That's from Samantha, I believe.
Yeah, thanks, Samantha. I see that. Why don't you email Danny and I, and we'll get something set up really soon to talk about that. That'd be great. Thank you for reaching out. I also noticed that we had a message, just the appreciation for our staff about accessibility issues. And for those who don't use technology and prefer in-person options, that is something we're definitely considering as we go forward with VCA on all fronts. As we plan these workshops, we're consulting with our LAC and BAC and making sure that we're providing accessibility for those who would prefer in person and for those that don't feel comfortable right now to do in-person events. So we're trying to figure out the best way to do that right now and working on that. And I also wanted to note, because I don't think I mentioned it earlier, that I have to give a big thank you to the county's digital access team, because they are going through all of our outreach toolkit materials and making sure everything's accessible. So we just really appreciate all of county staff for helping us on this effort. It's taking the whole county to do it, and the state staff as well.
Awesome. Your next next question was, how are the vote centers being staffed? Can members of the community help like they used to as poll workers?
So under the vote center model, since the locations are open for more days, our managers, if you will, our vote center coordinators, we are recruiting through the HR department. In fact, we have an open recruitment right now, and we're getting applications to staff those positions. Those will be the positions that they'll start working in our department 29 days before an election, and then they'll go out and open the 11-day vote centers, and then they'll be each in charge of a 4-day vote center when that time comes. And for when all the centers are open at 4 days, then we will have our pool of stipend workers that we have used in the past, or others who may want to be involved as a stipend worker for 4 days can certainly contact us and let us know.
Awesome. Well, this is the hot topic. You actually have two related questions. One of them is, as a poll worker, are you required to work full days, or can you work a shift? And then the second question, and maybe you can answer at the same time, is, will workers in vote centers work fewer days than the days open, or how does that work?
So the vote center coordinators will need to commit to the full time. They are hourly workers, and they are going to be in charge of these vote centers. So we really need a consistent staff who can provide that service at these vote centers and manage them. The stipend workers, we may have a little more flexibility with hours. The best thing would be to reach out to our coordinator for the vote centers to get more information about that. And her name is Colleen Casanda. And anyone who's interested can call our main office number, which is 415-473-6456, and talk to Colleen about the specifics.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then I think we have a question here about what the EAC is and how was it involved with the Voters' Choice Act. So the US EAC is a organization that's a national kind of government agency involved in election assistance. And there are a number of members, Secretaries of State throughout the United States. And so they have some governance, but the Voters' Choice Act is actually specific to California. Ours was enacted in 2017, but there were other states who adopted the Voters' Choice Act as well. So it's actually a voting model that's available in other states as well. And so the EAC does provide guidance to states on a number of election rules. But the Voters' Choice Act in California is actually governed by the Voters' Choice Act for California law.
I do think too, LaKenya, we have an election advisory committee that we call EAC. So thank you though for pointing out there is that federal level organization. This question could be specific to our local EAC, Election Advisory Committee, that has been in place since 2006. So it's a longstanding committee made up of citizens from across the county that advise the registrar on a variety of things. So that committee has been involved for probably 2 or more years, talking about the possibility of implementing the Voters' Choice Act. And so they've they, the committee in general gives feedback. We reach out to them to get help with reviewing materials and to be involved. So that's our local committee that really also helps provide our office with some good support.
Awesome. More of that community engagement piece, which is again
Right.
so essential to Voters Choice Act. So I don't know if Megan or Danny wants to take this question. Looks like a wonderful voter, Salema Hooks, or Hawks, I don't want to miss your name, but the grandson is 17 and has registered. Is he eligible to be a poll worker at 17?
Oh, Linda, do you want to answer that? Because I'm not sure
I'm
how things have,
sorry.
no, it's okay. I'm just not sure how things have changed now that we're with under VCA actually.
Yeah, that's a good question, because there is a student, there has been a student poll worker program, and that may be changing with under VCA because the locations are open more days. And so there again, I think reaching out to Colleen to talk about that, because we do need people who can commit to the full time. It just ensures that our vote centers are going to be fully staffed and we'll have our consistent staffing. But please do reach out to Colleen to see in what way we may still be using students.
Okay, and you have about 4 more questions, and I'm taking them in the order they're received. So I want everyone to know we're going to get to your question. Bonnie Glazer asked about, can people volunteer to join any of your 4 committees to help out the elections?
Yes, people have reached out to me about joining the election advisory committee. So I would suggest that if people are interested in any of the 4 committees, they just they can contact Megan or Danny or myself. For our main office phone number again is 415-473-6456, or you can email us and we can talk to you about joining. We are looking right now specifically for our language accessibility advisory committee, somebody that has Chinese language skills, because that is a new language that we're supporting. So please feel free to reach out if you're interested in joining committees.
Okay, wonderful. And then this is a question related to remote accessible voting, I believe. It's from Chris Carpinello. Can we have remote access cameras at all related voting and counting locations? I'm thinking it's accessible vote by mail kind of question, but it might be an election observer question.
Yeah, it might be the way I'm understanding this could be about security cameras. We are currently exploring or investigating that possibility. So it's something we're looking into, the how feasible it would be to have those kinds of cameras, if that's what the question is referring to.
Okay, hopefully that answers your question, Chris. And I think we answered the question earlier about how high school students could be poll workers. It really just depends on them contacting your local person, Colleen. Is that right? And then finding out the schedule. Okay.
And LaKenya, do you mind if I jump in for a quick second on
Please,
that question about the 17-year-old? I just wanted to quickly plug in that we have a youth outreach program here at the county. It's called the Student Elections Ambassador Program, and information about it is available at marinvotes.org. It's a great program available to young people who are in high school or college aged that will help get students pre-registered and register to vote, and get information through peer-to-peer contact. So if you're interested, or if your grandson's interested, please send them to our website so they can look at more information about that.
All right, and then the next question is about ballot tracking services. Where's my ballot? I know that SOS has that feature, but if you can talk about it from the county perspective, how do people get involved with ballot tracking, ballot tracks?
Oh, sure. And Danny or Megan, please feel free to jump in here. But Ballot Tracks is a service that people can sign up for online. It's really easy. It's accessible. You sign up from the Secretary of State's website. And it's a way for people to know where their ballot is, that it's coming to them, that we've received it, that we're going to count it. So you just get these messages that help give you some comfort in knowing where your ballot is in the process. So I encourage that people take advantage of that service and sign up for it. It's free. Megan or Danny, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, you pretty much covered what Ballot is. We definitely will be promoting that through our outreach toolkit. So you can look out for messaging about it throughout all of our messaging. And there is, of course, a lot of information about that on the Secretary of State's website as well, in case you have more questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, and during the election time, I can tell you that we are taking phone calls and tracking. People have signed up for ballot tracks and then called us and said, okay, I signed up, where's my ballot? We want to know kind of where we to look. We'll help you navigate the website to track your ballot from beginning to the time it's actually counted in the roll. And then I think Chris has another question. He says, can the ballot tracking service guarantee that my vote is counted correctly?
Well, the ballot tracking service lets you know that we have received your ballot. If there's any reason a ballot is challenged for maybe lack of a signature, or signature doesn't compare with the voter registration, voters will get that sort of notice as well. Votes are counted correctly. The system is programmed and set up that it counts ballots. We test them in advance, and so that we know things are counting accurately and correctly.
And is ballot tracks the same as where's my ballot?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I know
And
there's a
also-
little confusion about that.
Yeah, we got some messaging or some feedback from our outreach network saying that there was some confusion over that. We're trying to figure out a good way to make sure people understand that that's the same thing. The ballot tracks and where's my ballot are the same thing. And also just to quickly note on the question about counting your ballot accurately, all of our processes are available to the public. So if you're particularly curious about how we do something here, or if you want to watch the testing of our equipment, you can come down and check it out as an observer.
All right, wonderful. We have a question from Ann Laser about some voters think that they have to vote on every part of the ballot. That isn't true, but can you explain more?
Sure. Yeah. People just can vote for the races that they want to. It's not like a test where you have to make sure you have voted for everything. If there's a contest that you're not sure about, you just skip it. And the contest that you vote for will be counted.
Okay, wonderful. I think that answers the questions. So if there are any more questions that maybe we didn't get to, and you wanted to ask, you have a few more minutes to ask those questions, but then you actually have all the time, because Danny and Megan and Linda are available to you at the local Marin County office anytime that you need that. Our office is available as well, but you are in great hands with Marin County. So let us know if you need anything else.
Thank you, LaKenya.
Yes, thank you.
We do appreciate the support of
Definitely.
the Secretary of State's office.
Wonderful. We are glad to be part of the team in helping to ensure access to all voters.
And while we
Active registered voters, that is, right?
right.
So that's
While we-
probably our closing messages. Please go online and make sure you're actively registered so that you get your ballot on time.
Definitely. And I do want to take this moment as we have a little pause perhaps in questions before we wrap up to really thank Megan and Danny. They have done such a great job on our
Yes.
outreach efforts so far. And they continue to work really hard every day to make sure that this outreach is going to be beneficial to the voters. So I really want to applaud them, and also the rest of the staff. This has been a really big effort on our part to bring this model to the Marin County voters, and everybody's been working really hard to make this happen. So thank you to the elections department team.
Yes.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you,
We
Linda.
echo the congratulations and echo the hard work observed by our team and the folks you see here on screen who are not speaking, but who are behind the scenes at the Secretary of State's office, also working very hard. Emily Hinton, Janelle Jackson, Joe Kosirik. Of course, our secretary is always working and leading the charge, so we're just trying to keep up with her. So thanks again for having us. Congratulations again, Marin County. We're available if you need anything else. All right, that's all.
It looks like we have a couple of last minute
Oh,
questions.
we
We
do.
have
Okay.
a few more minutes. Someone asks, what is an active voter? An active voter is somebody who has been participating regularly in voting versus an inactive voter who maybe hasn't voted in quite a long time. And so we use that because we want people to know that these ballots go to active voters. And if an inactive voter then comes to vote, we can reactivate them, but they would not get their ballot materials sent to them like an active voter will.
So if you did not participate in the last election, you're not considered an active voter. What makes you active or not active?
No, it's not in the last election. It's over a period of time. And if we get notices back from mailers that we've sent out and they come back that the addressee isn't known or somebody is not at that address, then we may put them into inactive status. And I don't know, Megan, do you have anything else to add about that process?
No, that's pretty much all I would say. But if you have more questions, feel free to call or email and we can walk you through that or direct you to the correct person here at the election staff.
And somebody else is asking, how important is it to vote at local elections? I would have to say very important, because really it's at the local elections, a race can be won or lost by 3 votes. We had a very close race in 2020. And so local elections impact you the most directly, and they can be very close. So local voting is really important.
And maybe can you elaborate on some of the decisions that are made through local elections? So not just an elected official, but sometimes it's budget items, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's
Tax items. That's right. That's right.
Funding schools.
Mhm.
There's also hospitals.
There's a lot of things. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Another question. How can a voter find out if they're active or inactive? Just contact the office and we can look that up for you. Or I believe a person can check their status, their voter status online. There's a Secretary of State has a link to that. You can check online. I don't know that link off the top of my head, but
Can Emily or Jen someone put the Secretary of State's link into the chat as well, please, for checking your voter status? And then I know we have it in this presentation. If you go back and look, there's a QR code where you can check your status as well. So we really encourage that. And we have a little bit of time. Is there a deadline from which a person can actually fix their status if they aren't active? Is there a time period from which they can actually correct that?
in advance of an election.
Yes.
So registrations should really be updated by 15 days before an election. Because after that, a person would need to go in person to one of the new vote centers and then update their status there. So to get it updated before the 15-day registration deadline means that your information will be sent to you in the first go around of mailing.
Okay. So I know that the law requires ballots to be mailed 30 days prior to the election day. And so if you're waiting till 15 days, you might miss that first, mailer. But the saving grace is that in VCA counties, which Marin County now is, you can walk right into a vote center and do a provisional registration. So if you're not on the list where you got the ballot in the mail and you forget, or someone else forgets, they can walk into one of your vote centers, and register provisionally.
And they can activate their registration and vote.
Great. Awesome. And then we put the SOS website there to check your status online with our office. It's voterstatus.sos.ca.gov. And yeah.
Thank you for that. I think we've got a couple minutes. I'm not seeing any more questions that we haven't answered. Thank you for the positive comments. I see some positive comments coming our way. We do appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of good things are happening in Marin County, and the Voters' Choice Act, just one more good thing. You have an engaged community as evidenced by the questions, and Mhm.
Yeah, our voters are very engaged. We typically have very high turnout in our elections. A lot of the time we're number 1 or 2 in the state for turnout. So our voters are very active.
Yes. All right. Well, I guess for any CBOs that are on the line, we thank you for amplifying the message and getting the word out to the public who couldn't be here today. And this, again, video should be available right after to go online. So
Thanks, LaKenya. It looks like we're just about at our stopping time today.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Yes,
everyone.
thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody, for attending.
All right. Take care. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye-bye.